Hey everyone, welcome back to another edition of Hoosier Game Day. I'm Griffin Gonzalez, once again riding solo. I think Grace has left us, guys. I think she's done. I'm kidding. She's in meetings here tonight and she will be back next week. But hey, you get me, and we're going to have a great show today. Lots of people coming on to talk about a lot of Indiana sports. Indiana basketball is back. We're talking men's and women's teams. Women are absolutely rolling with the highest ranking in school history. Excited to hear from Callie Metzger about how that team is doing moving forward. As for the men's side of things, Max Rezic coming on. Tell us what they can expect in their Friday night matchup, as well as what they're going to be doing moving forward here the rest of the season. Finally today, we're going to talk some men's soccer with Jack Edwards. He's going to be breaking down how the Hoosiers are feeling heading into the Big Ten Championship at Penn State this Sunday. But as always, the bulk of our show centers around football. And football is an interesting topic here in Bloomington because it has been different this year. Different in the sense that it's been a return to the football of Indiana that we grew up watching, right? It's a return to a team that just had expectations but didn't fulfill them. This team is officially ineligible following their loss to Michigan last week, and it's a team that's not going to be going to a bowl game for the first time in the past 3 years. It's a tough team. 3 games to go, but nothing to win for. It's one of the toughest things in sports, right? But here's the thing. What if there is something to win for? The end of your season, yeah, it might not mean much. It might not get you bowl consideration, but the end of your season can actually propel you into next season. It's a time to get young guys like, I don't know, the freshman quarterback who's been starting for the past 2 weeks, some much-needed experience. It's time for your younger guys to gain confidence, some of your older guys to boost their NFL resume. It's time for this Indiana team to figure out who they're going to be next. And the next 3 weeks, well, some of you might have been out already, and that's fine. But I'm telling you, you shouldn't be, because the next 3 weeks of Indiana football could very well tell us how good this team can be in 2022, 2023, and yes, even into 2024. 3 games left, not making a bowl game, but this team's not out yet. Lots to come for Indiana football moving forward into the future. Without further ado, let's get started on another edition of Hoosier Game Day. All right, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Hoosier Game Day here, and we're talking Indiana women's basketball, the number 8 team in the country, and they're roaring, looking to get back to another Elite 8. Joining us now, beat reporter for the Hoosier Network, Callie Metzger. She's been covering the team backwards and forwards so far this season. Callie, this team looking special already. I know they have their first win of the night just earlier this week against Butler, where this team just, Nicole Cardano-Hillary, even one of the, I would argue, maybe not even the top 3 player on this team, coming out with a fire start, and that just shows how deep this team is, right?
No, it does. And, you know, the exhibition game kind of showed us that as well. I mean, I don't know if you noticed, but, I mean, Coach Morton played the whole bench. Yeah. And, you know, all of those players, had game time. And I think it does show the depth that this team has this year. And I think that's why they're winning so many games. But Nicole Cardano-Hillary showed also how much depth that they have, because like you said, she isn't even like the number 3 player on the team. And I mean, she carried that win. Patberg and Holmes, didn't have the best performance at Butler defensively. Holmes, couldn't, and then Patberg only had 2 points. So it wasn't that, but I mean, yeah, she did outstanding. But this team is the depth that they have, and how much that they can, use all of the players on the bench is incredible. So.
This is a team that made it to the Elite 8 last year. I know. Certainly looking to do even more this year. I guess, what's the biggest difference in maybe strengths or weaknesses even of this team from last year compared to this year?
I think that, they did return 5 starters, so I think that is a strength that they have, is because they have that sort of, chemistry playing together. And here they are again, Patberg and Holmes and, Nicole Cardano-Hillary is a senior to a graduate. But, so I think that's a huge strength. But also they have some pretty impressive freshmen. Caitlin Hose is, she had her debut in the exhibition game against UIndy, and she did outstanding. But yeah, I do think that is going to be a strength for them this year, and having Allie Patberg back is a huge strength as well. I think she's talked about how it is surreal for her to have that Indiana jersey again, but I think she's such a huge component to this team that having her back is going to be an absolute strength for them.
Allie Patberg, we've been saying her name since I was a senior in high school, and I'm now graduating.
Yeah.
So it's been a while that Allie's been here. Talk to me about her leadership. I mean, what is it like having a 7-year college veteran in the locker room?
Yeah. I'm going to start off with that. I asked her post-game, press conference, I asked her after the exhibition game in UND, I said, what does it feel like being back here in Bloomington? And she kind of shut me down a little. She was like, I'm an emotional person because this is surreal for me. This is kind of developed into my personality, is playing for Indiana basketball, and, those years at ND and then coming to Indiana. But, Coach Morin kind of calls her the blueprint of women's Indiana basketball, and I think that that's a huge thing because she is showing, the freshmen on this team and, the Cardano Hillarys and the Holmeses and all of those that, this is what it's like to be on Indiana women's basketball, and it is crazy. It's surreal, and it's her 8th. She has said it's her final, so there's not going to be another tweet that's saying I'm coming back for next year. This is the final, but it's amazing watching her play. So.
Okay, but Callie, big matchup coming up on Sunday. Kentucky Wildcats, top 15, 13 versus 8. Yeah. This is a team that Indiana feels like they could have beat last year on the road. They didn't quite just get there. What are you expecting to see from them tomorrow? I'm expecting to see a win, to be honest with you, because I think that the confidence that they had playing Butler and watching them play is just outstanding. I mean, I think that they're on a roll this season, and we all know that. We've all said that. I think that they have such a good base already. Their first game winning that, and then the exhibition game obviously is a lot of learning points that they had. But I think that they're going to do well. I think just as long as their defense is up to beat, I think they're going to be great because their offense obviously has been performing outstanding. So that's going to be the only thing I think from them. Callie Metzger, you can follow all her work at thehoosiernetwork.com or at the Hoosier Network. She'll be covering the game on Sunday, right?
Yes.
So be sure to follow her for everything involving Indiana women's basketball. Callie, thank you. Coming up just around the corner, we're talking Indiana men's soccer. Gwen Parks was at that game earlier this week. We have her recap of the Big Ten semifinals. Let's check it out with Gwen.
Looks like the IU men's soccer team will be heading to the Big Ten tournament finals for their 5th season in a row tonight after beating Northwestern 1-0 in the Big Ten semifinals. The lone golden goal was made for the Hoosiers by number 2 Joey Mayer and assisted by Tommy Mahalik and Ryan Wittenbrink. Indiana played solid all 97 minutes without losing hope, which ultimately put this Hoosier team on top.
We didn't get frustrated when the chances didn't give us something really strong. The guys just stayed focused and got ready for the next play. So there's a real fine line of getting over the edge of frustration with chances versus it's coming. Just keep doing it. I thought we were right on that good edge.
Goalkeeper Roman Celentano had a great performance tonight with 5 exceptional saves. Unbelievable is how his teammate Joey Merritt would describe his performance.
And deflecting crosses and 3 saves.
Roman's unbelievable. It's not going to be playing with the best goalie in the country. It's just, you see it day in and day out. It's such a confidence boost for the entire team. We're able to have him in the back of the net.
The Hoosiers will now advance to the Big Ten championships this Sunday against Penn State in Happy Valley at noon. You can watch that live on BTN. Well, that is it for me for tonight. I've been Gwen Parks for the Hoosier Network, and I'll catch you here next time.
All right, thanks for joining us. Shout out to Gwen Parks for that awesome recap. And, man, what a thriller against Northwestern. Big Ten semifinals, it all on the line. Roman Celentano, SportsCenter top 10. Number one.
Number one.
There you go.
That was remarkable.
Unbelievable, but unbelievable play. And then, of course, Joey Mayer. It runs in the family, guys. He's a legend. Jack Edwards joining us now to talk some Indiana men's soccer before he heads to the Big Ten championship game tomorrow in Penn State. And I guess, Jack, once again, Indiana back in the championship in a year that many were not expecting them to be here. How'd they do it?
5-3-1. Some bad losses to open the year, especially to all 3 of your losses in the regular season at home, up until that last one against Maryland, of course. Really, I think that it was just a recovery. I think that there was always a sense of calm within the program, that even though they may have had a match or two that they dropped where maybe in a normal year they wouldn't have dropped, I think that they just figured out ways to learn those lessons from those games, especially against Creighton, especially Michigan and Rutgers. Saw them get advantages against Rutgers. They took a lead earlier in the regular season, 1-0 at home against Rutgers. They dropped that one 2-1. Big Ten tournament comes around. They take the 1-0 lead. They hold it after the entire match. They win that one. And every time they've gone to overtime, with the exception of Akron and Michigan, so in their overtimes, they're 3-1-1. And they've been able to get some huge ones recently, especially against Omaha, Wisconsin, and Northwestern in the most recent matches. So this is a team that knows how to win the matches again. It was the staple of them in the spring when they got to the national championship. If that trait comes back for them, it bodes very, very good signs for postseason action.
We've seen Todd Yeagley coach #1 teams all the way through. We've seen him coach unranked teams to somehow get to the tournament. We've seen him coach teams that finish just above 500. Now we see him coach a team that has just kind of been all over the place. Should this Indiana team win this Big Ten championship on Sunday, is this Yeagley's best coaching job yet?
I would say you're hard-pressed to find a better one. 2012 was very remarkable because they had to win the Big Ten championship to even make the tournament because the regular season was poor. But then I think you could kind of point and say, well, the regular season being poor is an indictment on his coaching. So this has been the best body of work from him, considering the setbacks, considering the fact that this was the #1 team in the nation very early on in the season, went several weeks unranked, just receiving votes. At one point, they got just 3 votes. Just 3 people thought, let's just toss Indiana a vote because it's Indiana. To recover from there to now having the 13th best RPI, a chance for a 4th consecutive Big Ten tournament title. It's remarkable. Winning head-to-head, one-on-one matchups in soccer is so hard because it's so low scoring. Upsets are more prevalent in that than almost any other sport because the margins are so fine that define the matches. So I think that this has been really, a testament to the body of work he's built together as a coach. That he's been able to say, there should be a sense of calm. They figured it out. They weathered the storm. And this team, I think, is the better for it. In the spring, they didn't really have too many setbacks that kind of pushed them down. And so against Marshall, that was a really tough match for them. They couldn't come out on top. Maybe this time around, they get to one of those matches. The bad lessons they've learned, maybe Yeagley's been able to spin those into good ones. I think they definitely have been able to do that.
Been able to spin those into good ones. I think that's been a key trait for this Indiana team in the late half of the season. Okay, let's talk about this championship on Sunday. Big time matchup. They beat Penn State earlier this year in another close battle.
Yes.
I don't know if the last time there wasn't a close battle for Indiana men's soccer. What do they need to do it again? I know we always hear in sport it's hard to beat the same team twice. Indiana trying to do it.
This is going to be really tough for Indiana. I would actually say that Penn State are probably favored. In my projection of the tournament, I expected actually Michigan to knock off Penn State, but Penn State handled Michigan comfortably. They were clinical in that match. If Indiana has a repeat of the Maryland match where they create chances in the opening and they aren't able to finish them, that's going to be very negative for them. I think that this team really, you got to be clinical with your opportunities, especially Herbert Endeley. He's been one of the best players in the Big Ten at being able to generate these looks, but he hasn't been able to finish them. So I think that the key for Indiana is to not leave any opportunities on the table that you maybe regret going forward.
All right, Jack, so let me get one more official prediction out of you. Indiana, Penn State, where are you going? It sounded like you were leading Penn State there a little bit on that last question.
I don't want to make the long trek to Penn State to have some bad video to send to the Indiana fans that definitely follow us.
It's okay, we did it for football a few weeks ago. So
it's been a bad season for football, I can imagine. I think that it's going to go overtime, I think. You look at the match earlier in the season, it was an own goal that decided that one. Indiana didn't put one by their own accord in the back of the net. I think it'll be probably 1-1. I'm going to say Roman Salentano is playing at another level right now. It'll be no goals for Penn State, I don't think, at least through the regulation. If Indiana can scrape one, it may just be one goal that they need because he's playing at that good a level. I think it's a golden goal winner in just a 1-0. I think of Victor Becerra. He's kind of been a bit quiet last few weeks. He pushes himself back into the national discussion heading into the tournament, but Indiana 1-0 in overtime against Penn State.
All right, Jack Edwards picking the Hoosiers for the Big Ten Championship this Sunday. Indiana, Penn State. Be sure to stay tuned to Jared Kelly and Jack Edwards for all the coverage on that one at the Hoosier Net. They'll have it all going for you on that website there. So be sure to stay tuned to that. Coming up just around the corner, we are going to be joined by Max Rezick, and we're going to be talking some Indiana basketball right after this. You won't want to miss it.
What's up, Hoosier fans? Max Rezick T-Winkle here for the Hoosier Network following Indiana's 85-49 victory over Northern Illinois University. The Hoosiers got things going very early and were very strong on the defensive side of things. TJD had 7 blocks, and he also led the team in scoring with 19 points. The Hoosiers also were firing on all cylinders early on from three. Xavier Johnson got involved as well. Overall, the team was playing a lot more confident, and Jordan Geronimo talked about that, how they're feeling better on the offensive side of the ball.
I feel like I was still able to do all the things I was able to do this year, but last year, but I could do it more efficiently because I have more confidence this year because Coach Richardson was able to, talk to me and just, mentally get me right for the season.
Balanced scoring had a big impact on today's outcome. Last year's freshman class each got a turn in the spotlight from beyond the arc. Leal, Lander, Galloway, and Geronimo all sunk a three-pointer throughout this game, and Mike Woodson talked about that total team effort.
I thought everybody that played tonight, gave us effort and did exactly what we asked them to do. A lot of that is the work. You got to give them credit because they've been working, man, over these last 6 months that we've been together.
So Indiana finishes their first two games 2-0. The first one a little close. This one was done pretty early on. The Hoosiers finish it off 85-49 against Northern Illinois. That's going to do it for Max Resnick-Tewinkle from Assembly Hall. This is brought to you by the Hoosier Network. We'll see you next time.
All right, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Max Resnick joining us. Great recap right there of Indiana's game against Northern Illinois last night. Max, this is an Indiana team now 2-0. Looking forward to continue to build this season. What have you been impressed with for the first two games here?
I think for the first game after that one, we talked about Rob Finney. You and I talked about on Twitter Spaces. Check that out if you haven't already. Rob Finney providing some great production off the bench. And that was really good to see because in previous years under the Archie Miller tenure, there wasn't depth, really. And there were situations where when the starters weren't scoring, Archie would try and go further down the bench, and there was really nothing there. And IU basketball would get in situations where they would just move the ball around the arc and really wouldn't be able to penetrate down low. And obviously, in the first game of the season against Eastern Michigan, Trace Jackson-Davis he led the team in scoring. He was able to do what he does best, penetrate down low, and really bully the Eastern Michigan defenders. So that's been really strong for the team thus far.
Okay, let's break down a specific player now that you think is going to be key for this Indiana team. I guess, who are you looking at this roster? Obviously, we know about the TJDs and Xavier Johnsons of the world, but who do you see as a key player that's going to determine how good this Indiana team is going to be this year?
There's Tamar Bates, obviously, but my pick would be Jordan Geronimo. I think he was a very strong player recruiting-wise. He was a 4-star recruit, and just when you look at his frame, he's got the build to be he really has the build. If he reaches his full potential, he could play at the next level. I genuinely believe that. He's got a big frame. He's a tall guy for his position at the forward spot. He can shoot too, and he can get up. There was a lob the other day that he just skied above the rim, and I think those physical tools and those quote untouchables or intangibles that a player has, he just has so much potential that I think if he really fills that up and reaches what he can do, I think he can take this team to new heights.
All right, what's the biggest weakness for this Indiana team?
3-point shooting thus far. That was a big emphasis for Mike Woodson this offseason, and they shot 4 for 24 against Eastern Michigan. Can't do that. You can't do that, especially as you move through non-conference and play St. John's, which is going to be their next matchup, and then moving on further to teams like Syracuse. And then, of course, getting into the Big Ten schedule, you cannot be shooting 4 for 24 from 3. You're not going to have success doing that.
You also can't do 4 of 24 on a math test I learned this week. This doesn't go well for anyone involved.
It doesn't.
It's not a good look.
You'll get yelled at.
Yeah, exactly. Max, I want to finish off here, okay? This is an Indiana team. I know it's early. I know we don't want to be making – I'm not buying my Final Four shirt yet, but where do you see this team ending up? Best case scenario, worst case scenario, if you had to split it in 2 different categories there.
Best case scenario, I think, with all the strong transfers that you have coming in, you also have a former 4-star in Miller Kopp who was a up-and-down player for Northwestern, but he was a strong guy coming in. I watched him a lot. I grew up a Northwestern fan, and so I watched him a lot there. And he's a guy who can provide that 3-point shooting. So I think absolute best case scenario, I really think they could do something like a 4 seed. I mean, that's very lofty expectations. That'd be a top 16 team in the nation. But I think they can reach something like that. And, I mean, worst case, they miss the tournament again, which would be very heartbreaking for the Hoosier fan base. But I think if things don't come together, if the three-point shooting doesn't come together, if that bench doesn't continue to produce, it's going to be tough for them to continue to string wins together, especially as you move into another packed Big Ten conference.
Max Rezik, you can follow all of his work online at thehoosiernetwork.com. Also, follow him on Twitter. Is it at, remind me
I changed it yesterday.
You changed it.
It's Max Rezik TW, because my name is too long, it doesn't fit. So
It happens. We the Hoosier Network Twitter account appreciates you shortening it so the characters, we can have more room there. Max Rezik, of course, joining us there. But hey, he doesn't just cover basketball. He also does some film study with Richard Fant, which we're going to actually watch right now. As we're going to have to watch it one more time, folks. I'm sorry. We're going to watch Indiana against Michigan as they break down what went wrong in that one. Max, without further ado, take it away. All right, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Now to the bulk of the show for Hoosier Game Day. We're talking football with Hoosier Network's very own Jack Ankeny, and of course, Indiana University Student Television's very own Will Trubshaw. Gentlemen, thanks for being here today. We're going to start talking about last week's against Michigan. We just watched the film study on it, and you knew Michigan had a good chance of winning. Would you say after watching it, Indiana played it closer than you were expecting, or is that exactly how you expected things to go?
Yeah, well, I think compared to maybe the Penn State or Iowa game, Indiana at least hung with Michigan for longer than I think maybe some people expected. But I think just Indiana's inability to stop the run, Hassan Haskins was breaking big play after big play. You kind of had a feeling deep down, even at halftime when it was maybe a little bit closer than past games, that Indiana was pretty much outmatched.
And Will, if I can come to you with a different angle here, first 6 games of the season, it was the Indiana offense that was losing games for him. And now the last few games, it's actually been the Indiana defense. Do you think that's actually been a factor? What's going on there? Because this was an Indiana defense that was one of the best in the country not that long ago.
Yeah, I mean, I think right now it's certainly turning into a revolving door in that sense. Because I would say this week, definitely the offense lost Indiana this game. Sure, the defense, they gave up like 411 yards to Michigan. Michigan only put up 29 points. I mean, to be quite frank, I thought Michigan, in a respect, they probably could have. They were more likely to lose that game just the way they were playing. They should have blown Indiana out. Just that the defense didn't look great, but they had moments where they were able to lock down. But still, they got beat up. So I think in this game, the offense kind of lost it for Indiana. I mean, you had that stretch of 4 straight 3-and-outs to start the second half. Excuse me. That was just like the offense can do that, especially after what they did against Maryland. It looked like they kind of finally come on, but that was a game where the defense lost them. So I think right now, it's something Tom Allen has mentioned. It's just this team has not been able to put it all together in one game. There's been this lack of consistency, this inability to really throw it all together at once and have all 3 phases play well in the same game. I don't know what the fix is for that. I mean, that should be just something that's happening, especially if you're a team that is playing in the Big Ten Conference and expecting to be competitive. You've got to be able to throw it together all the time. But I think this game, it was definitely it was a reversion back to the offense just did not show up. And the defense, I thought, played well, and they kept Michigan to enough field goals, enough not big scoring plays. They gave up a lot of those big plays, but they did enough of the bend, don't break that had the offense played better, I think they could have won. But I think, again, it just comes down to just inconsistency this year. There's been no one sequence where I thought Indiana played a complete game all the way around.
Gentlemen, I'm coming to both of you on this one because the offensive stagnant, I don't know what the other correct word, it's just been stagnant all year long. Let's be frank. It just seems like I don't know where to put my finger on what exactly is wrong with it. So if you guys had to pick one angle, we'll come back to you for the first one. What is it about this offense that just can't get something going? Is it the play calling? Is it this team not executing? What is it?
You're making me pick only one?
You're more than welcome to pick many things.
I think For me, it has been a lot of the play calling, even, back when, I'll say two things, play calling and health. Because when you go back to when Michael Penix was healthy, they were being pretty conservative with it. It's something we've seen in the past, but, it wasn't like we were seeing a lot of deep shots downfield. There wasn't a lot of that aggression offense that we saw maybe a couple of years ago under Callie DeBoer, or even last year in Nick Sheridan's first season, where there were moments where, Michael Penix really was just able to unleash. You think back to that Ohio State game last season to me is like, that was peak Michael Penix, that was peak Indiana offense. Yeah, they lost the game, but that was the Indiana offense at its full strength. This year, we didn't really see that at all. We still haven't. We've seen at times Donovan McCulley kind of throw it downfield, but more out of a need to he's got to throw it because he's getting pressure, or there's a man semi-open and they're just trying to pick up a long first down or something. So I think the play calling has been, I'll say, suspect at times. It hasn't been as aggressive for the talent that's on this offense. But the injuries. You look at it, Penix is out. Tuttle is out. Stephen Carr went down in the Michigan game with an injury, and he was the only scholarship running back left after Tim Baldwin and Samson James departed the program. DJ Matthews was a guy, we kind of you forget about him now, but those first couple games of the season, it looked like he was going to be an impact. All those guys are out, and we've seen now Luke Haggard on the offensive line. Injuries in literally every crucial position for the offense. There's just not a lot of consistency there, and when you're relying on walk-ons and third-string quarterbacks, not to say that they're not D1 athletes, but they don't have that experience because they haven't been getting the same reps that the other guys who were the starters were getting. So I think the injuries, maybe an underrated part, but a big part of why Indiana has struggled so much on offense this year.
Yeah, for me, I think something that's underrated that maybe people aren't talking about as much is how the Indiana offense has had to adapt from Michael Penix to Jack Tuttle, then to Donovan McCulley. Obviously it's just one position, but that one position can affect each position on the offense around. That's different chemistry with the receivers throughout. That's, different communication in the backfield with the running back. That's a different cadence or a different type of play calling and communication with the offensive line. And I think that inconsistency of not having a guy that you can rely on under center throughout the year has really affected Indiana's offense from finding any sort of rhythm. Because, at the start of the year, you expect big things from Michael Penix, but clearly he, wasn't at, it didn't look to me like he was at full strength or full comfort in those first few games. Tuttle gets hurt pretty quickly after replacing Penix, and now playing with a freshman quarterback. You can't expect much from him, I think, in a road environment like Michigan. He flashed a few areas of potential, I think, with that 124-yard run to set Chris Childers up for Indiana's only touchdown against Michigan. I think that was kind of that moment that you can point to with Donovan McCulley about here's his big potential. And while there's been inconsistencies under center, I think a constant the whole season is we haven't seen this offensive line control the line of scrimmage, create consistent run game. Maybe against Maryland was probably the best example of Indiana's best game in terms of an offensive line standpoint. But, you watch the game against Michigan, and Donovan McCulley's running for his life the whole game. Jack Tuttle is hurt because on a touchdown throw, but still a throw that the offensive line allowed pressure pretty quickly. Like Will said, it's been a variety of things. You can point to injuries, but yeah, really everything that you could point to from Indiana at the start of the year that you wanted has everything has pretty much gone wrong.
Mm.
Well, a lot of things have gone wrong, especially last week in Michigan. One thing that didn't go wrong, though, the tailgates. They never do. They never go wrong at the tailgates. That's right, another edition of Tailgate Talks is here, and we got to go on a bus, guys. I don't know how to explain it. Enjoy. All right, well, glad Tailgate Talks was fun, a little more fun than the game. I think at some point we're just going to stop going into the game just because those are always fascinating. Gentlemen, let's talk a little bit of Rutgers before we close it out today. Obviously, Rutgers Scarlet Knights, new coach 2 years ago. They're trying to rebuild the energy around the program, get something going, but they too are in the Big Ten East and will always be on the bottom half of the Big Ten East with the big dogs. So I guess for you guys, I don't want to say must win because I think we're out the door with that phrase, but I guess for Indiana from a momentum standpoint, how much would a win against Rutgers mean for them?
Yeah, I think just with how this season is going, 5 consecutive losses. Every loss, it seems like Indiana's more and more disappointed after the game, which is understandable, obviously. But just seeing the name in the win column, I think would do a ton for Indiana's morale and the momentum going forward. Obviously, they're ineligible for a bowl, but I think kind of what this season is about moving forward is, one, developing Donovan McCulley as your future quarterback, if that's what Indiana envisions him as, and 2, kind of building some momentum, building some promise for next year, maybe working in some of the younger guys to kind of see who are the young Hoosiers that you can start building the 2022, 23, 24 teams around.
I mean, I'd second that. I think a win would be a great opportunity for the younger guys. And I think we know that we're going to see some of the younger guys anyway in the backfield, some of those young walk-ons, Davion Irvin Poindexter, Chris Childers, again, just because it seems pretty unlikely that Stephen Carr would play this week. So I think it's a good thing. There's no such thing as a moral victory, right? But I think even a real victory here would it would do something for this Indiana team that, I mean, they've just had a tough schedule, save for the Maryland game. Even at that, Maryland's not a bad team. They're not good. I'd say they're kind of right in the middle there. But Indiana has not had it easy. I think now you're kind of getting a team that, in a lot of ways, is banged up in the same way as Indiana is. Rutgers, I believe Noah Verdal, their starting quarterback, is going to be out this game. I don't think he's playing. So it's a chance to kind of play a team on a level playing field to where you're at with the injuries and just the struggles on both sides of the ball. So I think it would be a great opportunity if you're Indiana, kind of just, like Jack said, get back in the win column, just get a little bit of that feeling back. 5 games, that's in football, that's a month, almost month and a half without a win. You kind of forget what it feels like. So I think it would be big for the locker room, big for everything, just to get a little bit of that good feeling back. And it could change the end of the season. Again, not going to make a bowl game, but what you can build going into next year, so this isn't a totally lost season. I think a win this weekend could change a lot.
Let's go here now. I know this has been back and forth. Who's going to show up on any given week? Is it going to be the offense playing better? Is it going to be the defense playing better? Past few weeks, it has been. Last week it was neither, but 2 weeks ago it was the offense playing better and the defense didn't really show up. I guess for you, Jack, let's start here. Where do you expect these teams to be on both sides? Do you expect the offense to come out and play against a lesser defense than Michigan? What are you looking forward to?
Right, so I think this is a game that you see Indiana's defense kind of take a step forward back to the form that it was in earlier in the season. I think something that's been really missing from Indiana's defense is generating a lot of pressure on the quarterback. We haven't seen that constant pressure off the edge or up the middle, forcing bad throws or quick throws. I think that's different this week. I think Rutgers' offensive line is a bit weaker than some of the fronts that Indiana has faced in recent weeks. So I think Indiana gets a little bit more pressure on the defense. So I think we see a much stronger defensive performance than we have the last 2, 3, 4 weeks from Indiana. And then offensively, I think it'll be interesting to see. Tom Allen hinted that we might see multiple quarterbacks. He said Jack Tuttle and Michael Penix have both been progressing and practicing even a little bit this week. He said we'll see multiple. It sounds like Tuttle might be a little bit more favorable to play than Penix. So we'll see kind of if a 2-quarterback system could possibly bring some trouble to the Rutgers defense just because of the variety of looks, the difference in kind of style between maybe Tuttle and McCulley. So I think if I were to pick one side, I think we see a much stronger performance from the defense this week compared to recent.
If I can follow up here, would you prefer Indiana just ride with McCulley the rest of the way, get that confidence up?
Yes, yeah. I'm in the camp that I think you should just ride with McCulley the rest of the way. I think by bringing in Tuttle or Penix, that might be a shot at McCulley's confidence, that you don't trust him 100%. I think the fact that you're ineligible for a bowl, I think the number one focus, like I said earlier for this season, should be, can you develop Donovan McCulley into a Big Ten starting quarterback, and can you use the final 3 games against Rutgers, Minnesota, and Purdue, which is a much easier schedule than at the start of the year. Can he use those 3 games to get him on track? So if I was Tom Allen, I wouldn't be mixing in the quarterbacks, but from today's press conference, it sounds like that might be something that Indiana's going to look to do.
All right, Will, he talked a lot about the offense there. Talk to me about this defense. What do they need to do to just finish the season out with some kind of momentum heading into next year?
Turnovers. That was such a big key. Last year was the turnover. That secondary was ball hawking. Just the physicality. And I think it starts to what Jack talked about. They haven't gotten a lot of pressure on the quarterback. And I think when you're able to do that, when you put that pressure, it forces the quarterback to make quicker decisions, maybe decisions that they wouldn't normally make. They're a little flustered. They don't have as much time in the pocket. And that helps in turn generate those turnovers. Especially that the Michigan game, it felt like nobody was getting to the quarterback. And that's definitely a product of Michigan's O-line because they have a really good one. But just that inability is not allowed for Michigan to make stupid mistakes. But even at that, there have been times where it looks like there's for sure, quarterbacks will just toss up a loose ball up in the air. In Indiana, there's a man, Noah Pierre, whoever, pick a guy. He's there. He gets his hands on it, and it just slips right through his hands. They haven't been able to finish off those takeaway plays. They need to do that. I think, again, with this Rutgers team that they're a little deflated and a little depleted, much like Indiana, I think this is an opportunity to take advantage there, force some turnovers, create some havoc on defense, just kind of have them running around, and I think good things will happen. But it's got to start with the turnovers because that's always the key for this defense, and it hasn't happened this year. I think that's been the biggest reason why they've lost 5 in a row.
Would you believe me if I told you that Indiana was actually favorited this week?
Actually, yeah. I kind of would.
Would you believe me if I told you they're favored by a touchdown?
Right. I thought that was I thought it was going to be.
I'm just saying.
I kind of thought Indiana would be favored by like a field goal in this game, just because it's at home.
It feels
7 was a little bit surprising.
It feels like a 4.5 line, not a 7. A 7 feels. That might be a Rutgers thing more than anything, but no, it feels interesting. Now, this is a Rutgers team that Tom Allen has had very few issues with in his career, so we'll see what happens. But, guys, I want to get the predictions. Will, I can't remember if you were right or wrong last time. I think you picked an Indiana loss, so you were probably right statistically.
I don't recall myself. The one I remember was the Western Kentucky game. I was like, that's going to be 34-31.
You nailed that.
That one, that freaked me out. Wow. I was like, this is weird. This week, I would favor more the 4.5 line. I think it's going to be a close game for Indiana, but I do think Indiana pulls out the win this week. I think, final score in this one, it's going to be kind of a low-scoring game just because the offenses, I think, are going to struggle again. As much as we've talked about what Indiana's offense can do well, I think it's still going to be tough this week, especially if they go with a 2-quarterback system. I've never been a fan of that, except for when Northwestern pulled it off with Kane Coulter and Trevor Siemian. But I think it's going to be, let's go 2017 final score. Indiana pulls off the win. They get to 3-7 on the year.
Yeah, I mean, if you're looking for a high-flying offense and an entertaining college football game, I don't think this is the game you're turning on. If you're a college football fan, I think we're going to see a lot of punts. We're going to see a lot of field goals. We might see more turnovers than we're used to.
A lot of 3-and-outs.
A lot of 3-and-outs. Yeah. I think Indiana skates by in this one. I think, like similar to Will, I think it's a low-scoring game. I think Indiana gets a big defensive stop when they need it in the fourth quarter. I'm going to go Indiana 16, Rutgers 13.
I like it. I'm going a little higher scoring than Jack is. The over-under, I believe, is at 42, around that low 40s range. I'm going to go right there. I'm going Indiana 21, Rutgers 17.
Okay.
Rutgers go for a late onside kick. Don't get it. Because Indiana actually put out the hands team this time, and Hoosiers win this one. So we're not going to have a repeat of the Tennessee game, I don't think, this week. I do think this is Indiana's last one of the year, though. So I do think they're going to finish 3-9.
Yeah.
That's tough, but I think that's just the reality of the year.
Certainly their best opportunity to finish out the year with a win. I mean, Minnesota's going to be tough, and Purdue is playing some of their best football we've seen, honestly, in a couple of years.
Well, I think what's interesting is they're going to finish 3-9.
Yeah.
And of that 9 losses, their only loss to an unranked team is going to be Maryland.
Yeah.
Which is just insane. But anyway, that's going to wrap up our show this week. We thanks so much for joining us. Thanks so much for everyone coming on. And without further ado, get off Twitter, get off Instagram, get off whatever you're on, and go enjoy a Hoosier game day. We'll see you next